The porch light was off. That was the first wrong thing. Elara never let it go dark, not once in 6 years. Kieran Voss stood at the edge of his own driveway at 1:47 in the morning, staring at that single dead bulb like it was a loaded gun pointed back at him. He wasn't supposed to be home for another week. 6'3", shaved head, a jagged scar splitting one eyebrow. Kieran Voss looked exactly like what he was. A raven was inked across his throat, wings spread wide. Skulls and thorned roses wound down both forearms to his knuckles. Men who saw him coming crossed the street. Men who didn't learn that lesson usually didn't get a second chance. Tonight, he'd come from a deal that ended in a warehouse instead of a boardroom. 3 men who used to work for a rival crew wouldn't be working for anyone again. It should have felt like a win. It felt like nothing. It always did, lately. He'd driven straight from the airport without calling ahead. Paranoia didn't send warnings. He expected to find the house empty. He expected a note, or worse, no note at all. He drew the pistol from his waistband before his hand even asked permission. He let himself in through the side door, the one that never creaked. He knew this house with his eyes closed, every board that groaned, every corner a man could hide behind. He cleared the living room. Empty. He cleared the kitchen. Empty. Then he smelled it. Not her perfume. Not dinner gone cold. Something sharp. Something sterile rubbing alcohol. Antiseptic. The smell of a hospital wing dropped into his living room. His grip tightened on the gun. He moved down the hallway toward the bedroom, breath slow, heart slower. The door was open a crack, a pale light spilling out from the bathroom beyond it. He raised the weapon, braced for a stranger, braced for the worst thing a man in his position ever has to imagine. What he found on the other side of that door wasn't a stranger. It was his wife, sitting on the edge of the tub in an oversized sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a knot, her skin pale as candle wax, and beside her, a steel IV pole dripping something amber into a tube that disappeared beneath her collarbone. Kieran? The gun dropped to his side. His mind, built for threats and calculations, simply stopped working. What is this, Elara? She didn't flinch. She just closed her eyes, like she'd been waiting months to stop holding her breath. It's chemo, she said quietly. I have leukemia. The words hit him harder than any bullet ever had. How long? He asked, and didn't recognize his own voice. 7 months. 7 months. 7 months of breakfasts, of vacations they'd planned, of nights beside her while a war he knew nothing about raged silently inside her body. You hid this from me? The shock curdled fast into something closer to fury. Why? Because I know who you are, she said, meeting his eyes without flinching. You'd have dragged specialists into this house at gunpoint. You'd have torn the city apart looking for a cure that doesn't exist. And when you couldn't fix it, you'd have looked at me like I was already gone. I didn't want to be your broken thing, Kieran. I just wanted to be your wife for as long as I had left. Before he could answer, the front door opened downstairs. Instinct took over faster than thought. He raised the gun again, moving toward the sound until a man in a rumpled coat stepped into the doorway and froze at the sight of a loaded barrel pointed at his chest. Dr. Ibarra, Elara said quickly. He has a key. He's the only reason I'm still breathing. Rafael Ibarra was in his 50s, silver-stubbled, hands raised slow and steady, despite the gun in his face. He didn't run. He explained quietly, clinically, that Elara had paid him in cash, sworn him to secrecy, and refused any hospital because a hospital meant a paper trail, and a paper trail meant Kieran's enemies would find her before her own husband did. It was, Ibarra said, the exact treatment she'd get anywhere else. The only difference was the address. Kieran lowered the weapon. For the first time in 20 years, he had no target for his rage. You couldn't threaten a disease. You couldn't buy your way out of biology. Tell me what she needs, he said. Money isn't the problem. Ibarra's answer was the one thing Kieran's money had never been able to solve. Right now, Mr. Voss, we wait. So he waited. He sent one message to his second-in-command, a sharp, unshakable man named Silas Renner. Stand down. Cancel everything. I'm gone until further notice. Then he powered off his phone and didn't touch it again for 11 days. The man who'd built an empire on fear traded his tailored suits for sweatpants and learned to flush a chemo port with the same steady hands he used to load a gun. He learned the difference between her nausea medications. He scrubbed the air vents himself. The house that used to run on threats now ran on a med schedule taped to the fridge. But peace has a way of finding out where you live. 11 days in, the front gate buzzer cut through the quiet morning. Silas stood on the other side, rattled in a way Kieran had never seen. A rival outfit the Renwick crew had heard Voss pulled out of a major deal and read it as weakness. They'd already burned 2 warehouses. They wanted the docks. They wanted blood. Let them have the docks, Kieran said flatly. They won't stop there, Silas warned. They'll come here. Kieran's eyes went cold in a way that made even Silas take a step back. If anyone sets foot on this property, they won't leave it. Tell the streets I'm dead. I don't care what they believe. Just don't come back. 3 nights later, at 2 a.m., Elara woke shaking so violently her teeth clicked together. Her fever hit 102.8 within minutes, a number Ibarra had warned him about. No blankets, no ER. Call me immediately. Kieran ran cold water over a washcloth with hands that hadn't trembled in a decade, and they trembled now. Ibarra arrived in 12 minutes flat, IV antibiotics already in hand, and the 2 men sat in near silence for 4 hours, while Elara's body fought a battle neither of them could fight for her. At 5 a.m., her fever finally broke. Kieran didn't move from the chair beside her bed all night. He didn't sleep either. It was in the gray hush just after dawn, drinking cold coffee at the kitchen counter, that he glanced at the security feed out of pure habit and saw 2 men in dark clothing cutting through the side gate, carrying a block of explosives toward his patio. He didn't wake Elara. He didn't call for backup. He walked out barefoot into the wet grass with a suppressed pistol from the safe hidden behind the pantry wall, and by the time the sun was fully up, the only trace of what happened on that patio was a crew in gray coveralls quietly hauling away what didn't belong there. When Silas showed up asking for the order to retaliate, Kieran handed him a single drive containing everything: the accounts, the routes, the entire empire, and closed the door on that life for good. Tell them I'm gone, he said. Because I am. 2 weeks later, Dr. Ibarra came back one final time, a folder under his arm instead of his medical bag. Kieran stood behind Elara on the couch, hands on her shoulders, bracing for whatever came next. The marrow's clean, Ibarra said quietly. 0 trace of the disease. She's in remission. The man who had never once been brought to his knees in 20 years of violence sank onto that couch and wept into his wife's shoulder like the boss had never existed at all. By the time the roses bloomed again on that same patio, replanted with his own hands, the crushed ones finally replaced. Kieran Voss wasn't running from anything anymore. He wasn't hiding either. He was just a husband, kneeling in the dirt, waiting for his wife to call him in for tea. If Kieran and Elara's story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs a reminder that the hardest battles are sometimes fought in silence. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next, because their story isn't over yet. Tell us in the comments, do you think Kieran really walks away for good?